In this video, let's talk about how to solve quadratic equations by using completing the square. So we're just going to jump right into it. If you want to know more about the process of what does it mean to complete the square, you can check out in the video in the description below. So for number one, we have x squared minus 18x plus 5 is equal to 0. The first thing we want to do is make sure we move our constant to the other side. Okay, so we're going to start off like this, and we have x squared minus 18x is equal to negative 5. Now, at this point, we are ready to complete the square. We're going to add a term to the left side to complete our square. But now, since we're working with an equation and we want to keep our equation balanced, we can't just go add whatever we want. We can, as long as we do it to both sides. So we got to remember that. So we have x squared minus 18x. And so let's do b divided by 2 squared to know what we should add there. So we have x squared minus 18x plus, well, we have 18 divided by 2, which would be 9, and 9 squared would be 81. So we're going to add 81 to both sides. And so now the left side, we just created a perfect square trinomial, so we can factor this as the square of a binomial. So we can write this as x minus 9 quantity squared minus 9, because that's what we got before we squared when we did b divided by 2. So this is just negative 18 divided by 2. And now we have negative 5 plus 81, and that's going to give us a 76. And now we can divide, or not divide, but take the square root of both sides. So we take the square root, and now we have x minus 9 is equal to positive or negative 76. And now let's add 9 to both sides. Okay, so we get x is equal to 9 plus or minus the square root of 76. And so now for 76, we could think about, does it have any perfect square factors? Because we could simplify that a little bit. So we could divide it by 4, and that's going to help us because 4 is a perfect square trinomial, right? So we could write this as x equals 9 plus or minus. And now for 4, it'd be like 4 times 19 is equal to 76. So we could pull out square root of 4, which is 2. So we would have 2 root 19. So we had two solutions there, 9 plus 2 root 19 and 9 minus 2 root 19. All right, let's change up our color here and let's go for number 2. So we have 2x squared minus 20x plus 60 is equal to 0. And so now once again, let's subtract this 60 from both sides. So we have 2x squared minus 20x is equal to negative 60. Now with completing the square, a has to be 1, so we need to go ahead and divide everything by 2. So now that's going to give me x squared minus 10x equals negative 30. And so now we can complete the square. So we have x squared minus 10x. So let's take negative 10 and divide it by 2 to get negative 5, and we square that and we get 25. So we have negative 30 plus 25, and this is going to give us x minus 5 quantity squared is equal to negative 5. Now we can take the square root of both sides, and we get x minus 5 is equal to positive or negative square root of negative 5, and let's add 5 to both sides. So now we get x is equal to 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 5. Remember, we could write that as the square root of 5 times the square root of negative 1, and the square root of negative 1 is I. So we could write this plus or minus I root 5. Okay, so 5 minus I root 5 and 5 plus I root 5. All right, in our last example here, number 3, we have 6x times a quantity of x plus 2 is equal to negative 42. So we should go ahead and distribute this 6x. So we have 6x squared plus 12x is equal to negative 42. Now, before we can complete the square, we need to divide everything by 6 here, because remember, a needs to be 1. So we have x squared plus 2x is equal to negative 7. Now we're able to complete the square. So x squared plus 2x plus b is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. 1 squared is 1. So we add 1 to both sides. So now on the left side, we can factor this as x plus 1 quantity squared is equal to negative 6. And now we can take the square root of both sides. So we have x plus 1 is equal to the square root of negative 6, positive or negative. And now let's subtract 1. So we have x is equal to negative 1 plus or minus. And once again, this could be like root 6 times root negative 1. And root negative 1 is I. So this will be I root 6. Okay? And that's how we can solve quadratic equations by completing the square.